Hi everyone, welcome to the Rising Network. My name's Lily and I'm the founder of the network, and a warm welcome to today's online masterclass, Project Management for Non-Project Managers, with guest speaker Naily Makangu, who is the founder and director of Athena Leaders. Athena Leaders provides transformational change management services, including interim management, project management, training and coaching. And Naily has a background as a software engineer, which is where she and I originally met many years ago. So if anyone knows anything about project management and software agile development, Naily is the woman, the go-to woman for that. I would now like to hand you over to Naily for our masterclass, Project Management for Non-Project Managers. Thank you. Naily, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lily, and thanks for the Rising Network for having me today. Yeah, fab. Well, I'm really excited to be here with you and to share with you my wisdom and something I'm really passionate about, which is project management. And the reason why I love talking about project management and helping organizations to get a little bit better at how they manage projects is because of the value I see it brings to the way they work, and also to reduce stress within the company as well. As one of the pillars of my company is pretty much to turn your life and workplace into a playground. It's about delivering results. Of course, that's what we do, as especially in a consultancy, but it's about doing that and bear in mind the people as well. So what can you do in your organization, the way you work, in your processes and in the culture, so that people feel supported and really look forward to coming to work? When they reach that level, that's when you actually get a lot more from them as well. And I believe that managing projects, whether you are a project manager or not, has a lot to do with helping that in organization as well. Now, training courses wouldn't be a training course, whether it's virtual or not, without mentioning health and safety. Old habits die really hard. So this one is easy for me because I don't have to remember a lot of details. So if you need to go to the toilet, you know where it is. If you're running out of toilet paper, I can't help with that. And more importantly, if the fire alarm goes off, leave your house. But one thing I love mentioning when I run my workshops about when it comes to health and safety is just to understand that we are all here to support each other. And as Zidi said at the beginning, if you have any question, there's a chat provided, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. So we will be respecting what you've put in there, and we know that you'll be doing the same as well. Now, just before I dive in, one of the challenges I found with webinars is how we really change when you're doing online. So imagine watching something like Friends and there is no background laughter or noise. How does it actually feel to you? It's a bit like, at the moment, there's a lot of comedians out there that are turning into YouTube and recording from their house. And again, we're losing some aspect of the interaction a little bit. It was actually funny, there was an article on the news this week about that as well. Think about saying Lee Evans pulling faces, but there's nobody else laughing. Now, I know this is going to be a bit new for quite a few people, but one thing that I'm really trying to encourage the delegate, the crowd, anyone coming to my workshop, is to kind of give me some love as well. Not just for me, but also to all the people within the Rising Network that have been working really hard on putting this. So if you have any comments or anything that you like about what I said and you're really nodding vigorously, I might not be able to see you, but send me a thumbs up or a little clap, and I know that I haven't lost you along the way. And any mention that you want to put on the chat will be welcome as well. Now, let's dive in. Why are you here? And I'm sure that either you are a project manager wanting to improve your skills, or you are not a project manager, but you kind of want to put a little bit more structure on how you work. So what I wanted to do with this session is to go beyond the theory and try within the few minutes that we have to take you through some of the work that I will take through my clients through when I'm doing a consulting contract. And the way to do that is to make it as practical as possible. So one of the challenges I gave myself was to see how far I can go to this session by running it jargon-free. So that's right, no PMP, no Prince2 jargons, and I hope it will be accessible and fun for everybody. So if you catch me out, please make sure to put something on the chat as well. At least I will be held accountable to my promise to you. So the way I'm going to do this, and when looking at the practicalities of running a project, there are 3 key words or 3 key aspects of running the project that I really want you to take from this session. And that's build, potholes, and cruise control. What do you think that's got to do with running a project? Well, we'll find out in a minute. To really bring this to life as well, the second thing that I'm going to do is to walk through a project that I worked on a couple of years ago. And the project was, it was kind of to support the Deaf Awareness Week campaign, and it was to put a workshop based on building confidence for a mixed audience. Now, you're probably wondering why I picked that particular project. It's really something that I'm passionate about, and it coincides with the fact that the Deaf Awareness Week is actually starting next week, and I'm a strong supporter of that. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be training someone on a topic that I'm passionate, how about a case study that I'm also passionate about as well? So that's what we are going to do. And to help me along the way, I've got some friends. So we've got Naili, Peter, and Jane, which are part of the project team. And Naili will be the person who's paying for the project and also the person who kind of put the idea together and really want that to work. And she's got friends to help her with that. And there are other people along the way that you will get to know as we are going forward. Now, one of the challenges when it comes to non-project managers and this idea of project plan, and I guess one of the issues that people have is they think of Microsoft Project as project plan, and that sounds a little bit daunting. The second aspect is, how do you think of absolutely everything that you need to do, which of course you might not know at the beginning. But I guess for me, what I'm trying to do, and I'm going to give you 5 questions that you can use throughout the course of your projects to really help you come out with anything that you could, that will help you run your project, that will help you to know who do you need to keep informed, especially when you start running your project and you want to know what are the key people to talk to, the key people to ask for advice, and all of that. And the 5 questions that we are going to look at are why, who, how, when, and what. So if there's one thing you really want to get out of today, is just understanding how asking those questions in a variety of ways can really help you enrich your project plan or help you feel more confident as you are going forward with your project. Why are we doing this? I've been called in a lot of organizations, and when I ask that question, especially when projects have already been running, people really struggle to answer that. They really struggle to define the purpose, the goal, the objectives of their projects. And more importantly, what are the benefits? Now, sometimes, and it happened to me as well, you can be working with your team and you have something incredible that comes up in your head and you want to start running and go with that. But you need to sit down and really understand what is the benefit to the organization. If what you're running is not in line with what is the overview or the vision that the company has for the quarter or for the year, that will cause problem down the line. And sometimes when I go and do an audit for projects, the one thing I tend to do a lot is stop projects from going further, especially when they are already constrained on time or they don't have enough money or people. So understanding the benefits is really important, as well as understanding the goals. What is it that you want to achieve? So the next time you're starting a project, spend even if just a couple of minutes or 5 minutes to discuss this and make sure that it's written down as well. Now, I asked the same question to Naili, Peter, and Jane, and what is the objective and what is it that they want to do? Why they're running this workshop? And I challenged them as well to give me a one-liner, which is kind of a really quick summary that even if anyone is really busy and they want to, in one line, if they ask you less than a paragraph, tell me why you're doing this. And the why we came up with was to provide opportunity for professional development to a non-hearing audience. And we explained the benefits as well, what we wanted to get out of that for us, for the community that we were serving, and so much more. And as you can see, already at the onset of your project, you already have something written down in a Word document, for example. It doesn't have to be too complicated, but you're very clear on why you are doing this as well. Who should be involved? Think a little bit about this question. Who should be involved? whenever I work with people, again, one of the easiest group of people to identify are the people who are directly linked to the project, obviously the project team. But try to think a little bit outside of the project team and try to think about, look at your project from different facets and different aspects. Who are the people paying for it? And that can include senior management as well, because one misconception that I've seen in a lot of companies, they will say, we run this project and senior management knows that we're running it, but that's it. But how often do you keep them updated on what's going on? Do you wait until there's a crisis or something that's going really, really wrong, or do you need more money? Or do you give them reassurance as you are going along so that you can get more buy-in on what you are doing as well? Think a little bit about the people that will be affected by what you are doing in other departments. So if you're working on a campaign like this, would the marketing or the finance team needs to be involved so that they know when to do their bits, or mention something as well as part of the marketing campaign? Are there any experts? Obviously, you are the expert in terms of what you're doing, in terms of your work, but are there any areas of your work where you might need other people to just jump in and kind of give you a bit of a thumbs up that things are going well? And the people who will benefit from this project as well, or will be using whatever you produce at the end. How is what you're going to do change how they work? And just spending some time to look into that, you will start thinking about the people you want to speak to, the people you want to inform, or the people you might want to consult now and again whenever you have questions. And you can, again, as I said before, everything is about documenting as you go along. In a spreadsheet, you can put their names down and kind of roughly what information they need. And there you go. Without going to too much effort, you've already got 2 different pieces of documentation that will really help you as you start moving into your project. Now, looking at the case study again, who are the people who should be involved? Obviously, we've got the project team. Now, when you start thinking about a workshop, you need to have a speaker, right? Of course. But we're also bringing in Cambridgeshire Deaf Association, which is an organization that we worked with. And why? Well, we used to put a lot of workshops on, but we're not expert at putting in a workshop that will be also beneficial to a non-hearing audience. So we need to go and find the expert to help us direct our work. So we reached out to a representative of CDA and they agreed to come on board. And other people that we need to at least they need to know what's going on, even if they are not at every single meeting. We've got the marketing and the finance team. And again, if you start thinking about who will benefit from this, well, our delegates. And of course, we cannot invite our delegates to our planning sessions, but at least if we can bear them in mind so that whenever we are building the session or building whatever you're working on, you have the people who will be using that in the back of your mind, and it will affect how you're working on as well. And if you have, if you're in a company where you can have working groups or people who can represent customers as well, that's a good way of at least keeping them informed, if nothing else. Hey, FYI, this is what we are doing. Next question. How are we going to do this? How much money do we have for this? Sometimes you might not be very clear on the budget until you get to the end, but there is still some elements of planning up front. Just have a ballpark figure of how much you have or you're willing to spend on this, because knowing as well how much money is available does affect what you can do. How much are you going to deliver? How are you going to deliver this? Is this going to be done through online, for example, for the workshop, or is it going to be physical? Because those two already changes the tools, the amount of money you will spend. And think a bit about the people. And again, I'm really passionate about making sure that people are effective. So whenever you plan a project, think about people from the sense of the people who will be using what we are planning, or people who will be affected by that. It could be something simple as now that we are all going online, we are moving from Skype to Microsoft Teams. But what are the implications on the people? Should they need training? And suddenly you have one task already. It's something that you need to put on your plan, which talk a little bit more about the training aspect as well, making sure that there's work being done on that. So again, asking you the how question, already help you to start thinking about different aspects that are really important in managing and maintaining your projects, and also in tasks and activities that you need to work through. And as I've said before, as you are answering those questions, make sure that you write them down, even in a Word document to start with. The next question, when do we need this by? Now, depending on who you're speaking to in project management, most people hate that question. We don't like to be chained to a date. We don't like to be chained to, we are going to deliver on this date, especially much earlier on in the project where you don't have all the information. But it's still useful to ask this question. And that's because you can start thinking about restrictions or events that could impact the entire project or part of the project. For example, for the workshop that we were doing, because we wanted to do that as part of the DEF Awareness Week, well, our date was very simple. We had to deliver within that week. And knowing that affect or impact all the activities that we wanted to do. So if there's anything that will take longer and that's not going to make it, well, you need to think about a different way of doing that. And again, in the organization, there are certain restrictions. For example, if you're doing a big initiative that will require a lot of people and you will go through summer, you know that summer is a bit of a dead month, right? So if you're planning a lot of workshops, is there anything you can do to change the way you've managed or you put together your plan and how you are going to interact with people to bear that in mind? And another thing to bear in mind as well is, are you going to deliver the entire thing in one go or in different chunks? Depending on your work, you might work in phases. So if you do different phases of a project, make sure people know that. There's nothing worse than having a beautiful vision of a project, or for example, a new tool that you will be launching or a new update to one of your products, but you know you are going to release that in phases. At the end of phase one, people are disappointed because they never really understood that there's more good things coming in, and you start getting negative comments and criticism when in fact what they were maybe talking about will be addressed much later. So again, this goes back to the transparency and the clarity. The more you are clear on how you are going to do these things up front, the more it's easier for you to communicate to other people. And you probably guess what I'm going to say. Make sure that everything that you've done is also has been recorded and written down somewhere, as it will help you going forward. Now, the next and big question is, what are you going to do? Now, I said big questions, not most important one, because I believe that all of the other questions are as important as this, maybe even more so, because understanding the why, the how, the how much, and the who will help you when you start coming up with your task list or your to-do list of all of the activities as well. And when you start thinking about problems, because a hearing audience and a non-hearing audience, the way you will cater for them will be a bit different. And having that in mind at the onset before you even start will really, really help you. And another thing to really point out, and I also want to emphasize, is prioritization. Do we have to do this? Should we really be doing this? Again, I found that sometimes we get too excited and too attached to what we want to do, and we lose focus on the perspective of time or money and if we actually need to do that again. So whenever you're being challenged, especially if you're the one running a project and someone comes to you with ideas, great ideas, and you see the benefit of that, but you don't really see how you align with this particular project, then asking this question of priority will really help you to be more assertive without being aggressive, or handle the conflict in a very positive way. So you can show to people, okay, thanks for idea, I've got it written down, but it's a lower priority, which means that we focus on the highest priority, and if we have time, we go back to that. And again, this is a really good technique to be able to engage with people and keep people on track as you're moving forward. Now, I'm going to share with you an example, and I will walk you through what I would have done in a consulting contract. And another really important thing I want to also share with you is a very, very simple technique I share with a lot of people whenever I go in the company and they are not project manager by trade, but it's just that their work asks them to lead projects, manage teams, or you could be a product manager as well. And sometimes product manager have to take the lead on project, but they're not project managers. So how do I help them to really start thinking about the different aspects bring people together and run a workshop. And what I'm going to share with you is exactly the same. You can do it online and offline, and it's use Post-it notes. So how does a Post-it notes work in terms of planning your project? You start with a board, whether it's a virtual board or it's a face-to-face board or a flip chart. If you use a physical board, divide it into two. On one side, you have the tasks, and it's what you are going to do. And on the other side, you have the risk as well. And why is it important to have the risk? Well, one thing that happens quite a lot, and I think you probably have seen that as well, is when you start brainstorming and start coming up with ideas on what you are going to do, whether it's as part of a project or any other session, you have people that naturally can see the different cogs and different wheels of a machine. And they are really good at coming up with issues and risks. Now, depending on how much time you have available, you can jump in and focus on that straight away. But sometimes you really want to focus on the different steps. But keep an eye on the risk as well, so that either you do it at the end of the session or a different session. So it's a really good way to make, obviously, show to people that you're listening to them, but make sure that it's recorded. Again, as you probably know by now, I really love recording things as you're going along, and it's so much easier than having to do it at the end. So during the brainstorming session, during the workshop that you're doing with your team or anybody else, just have the risk written down somewhere so that you, as you're progressing, you know that you are not losing important information as well. Now, when it comes to the tasks, the first thing to look at, especially whether it's something that you've done before or you haven't done before, what are the big building blocks? That will really help you kind of calibrate and channel the way people are working and thinking as well. And for a workshop, we've got logistics, get people in, and workshop day. Those are the three big building blocks of putting together a workshop. Now, I can imagine Lily or Sarah from the Rising Network going, are you serious? Is that the only thing we do? No, there's way more that goes into putting together a lovely webinar or a workshop as well. But for the simplicity of this session, I'm just going to show you a few ideas so that you can get your brain going and how you can apply that in your organization. So now that you've got your big blocks, you can then go and start focusing on logistics. What are the activities? And again, as a simplified version, we're thinking about a venue, speaker, and catering, right? Great. And if you wanted to break it down into other levels, again, another Post-it notes, find venues. What can we do with that? Well, book a venue or go and identify or pay for it. And because of, especially for the Deaf Awareness Week, there was a venue that we used to use quite a lot. There was a coffee shop with TV that was suitable for the workshops. We're just going to use that, but make a note so that we know that we actually booked it and we've done all the due diligence for that. And again, once we're happy with that, we move on to the next section. Get people in. Well, we have to advertise the event and maybe distribute flyers. And again, for each topics, we decided to break it down into subtopics as well, or sub-activities. Workshop day. I think you know where I'm coming with that. You've got the pre-workshop checks, the running the workshops, and also the post-workshops. And when you start thinking about all of the other activity that goes in there, there you go. You've got the food and so many other things. And now, when you look at this vision, it's great. You already have a plan. It might not look like Microsoft's plan or whatever it is, but you already have a great outline that you can start. But don't forget, I did mention writing down some of the risks. And because this was something that we've done before, well, we decided that the risks are really minimal. The similar events, we kind of know what's going to happen, and that's okay too. The importance is that you spend some time even thinking and acknowledging the risks as well. Now, where do you go with that? Once you're done with this planning session, you can already see how this translates into a plan. If you don't have many tools and you want to keep it very simple, you can take all the information that you have right now and put it in a spreadsheet. And you can layer them based on the groups or the top level activities. So you have the logistics and the things that fall on the logistics, the get people in, and the things that falls onto below the get people in. And jargon coming up, those big tasks, logistics, get people in and workshop day, are what we call milestones. And why are they important? Well, if you start thinking about reporting the progress of your projects to especially senior leadership, they are not really interested in the tiny bits, little details. They want to know that things are moving on. And the way to do that is that you can have a graphical way of representing the milestones, or even just in a table, again, keeping it simple, there's nothing wrong with that, and putting the final dates of the milestones and roughly how much work has been done. And you know how much work has been done within those milestones or those top level tasks is because of the amount of work that you need to do below. So as you can see, just by bringing people together, using post-it notes, asking yourself those questions we were asking before, you can put together a plan without spending too much time on different tools or investing on tools and things like that. And also by simplifying and helping people think in a different way, it makes it easier for you leading the session to get the best out of them. Now, your plan is complete, and especially this is the beginning of the project. But is it complete though? That's the question I always ask my customers whenever I work with them. And when I come in and I start a project, the first question I ask goes back to my 5 questions, and is why? Why were you doing this? And going through the series of questions, can you map, or when you're answering those questions and really looking at your plan, does it map with the content that you had in mind? So if we take something simple, and the why, it was about organizing a workshop for a hearing and non-hearing audience. And who was to attract delegates, hearing and non-hearing delegates. But already there's one flaw in the plan. I don't know if you spotted it. There are no sign language interpreter. So how can you run a workshop with a non-hearing audience without a sign language interpreter? So the first thing we do, add another task. Oops, we forgot about that. It's really important. Find a sign language interpreter. And that's just it. Now, again, is this plan complete? What happened here is, and what happened in many organizations, is that a lot of people planning the projects are actually part of the project team. They sit down in the beginning, come up with a plan, which is wonderful, and that's the plan they will lead with towards the end of the project. And that's where things become tricky. So if I take you back from the top, from where we first started, we looked at 5 questions that was really important to help you break your project into granular level and look at the project from different perspectives. The why, the who, the how, when, and how, and what. So you've got all those questions and all the information done. And answering those questions, especially the what, helps you with building your task and milestone and building your project plan pretty much. And also look out for the potholes, which are the risks and the issues that might come along the way. One thing that we haven't really touched upon quite a lot, although I did mention ideas on progress, is the cruise control bit. Monitor and update your project. And that is equally important. Monitoring a project goes beyond just looking at the current plan. Is having this concept and mindset that the plan also evolves as you are going further, but evolve to what and going further where? And that's what we are going to look at now. You need to be mindful that a project has many phases as well. And true to my non-jargon challenge I give myself, I'm not going to mention any of the formal PMP, Prince2, or everything else. I've just simplified it so that even if you're not a project manager, it makes sense to you. And quite frankly, many organizations that I work with, when I need to get them going, this really helps them to move forward very quickly. The first step is starting your project. So you have this idea, you're about to start, you get the project team together, and you sit down and plan something. You ask yourself those 5 questions, you run a workshop with the team, and you have some information and you're good to go. But you're not good to go in terms of your entire project. This is only just the first step. But the first step gives you a lot of useful information. The second step is planning your project. Maybe thinking, well, we just planned. Yes, that plan is kind of an initial plan. Is just getting things out of your head onto paper and help you to have an indication of what to do to go into a detailed planning mode, and where you really need to focus on the other people, the who, bringing the who into your plan. And that's what is a detailed aspect of planning your project. Once you have a plan, which is kind of finalized, but again, things change, but at least you are more confident with what you're going to do, you can start running your projects. And that is all about keeping people updated as you're walking through your projects, and also checking, making sure that whatever issues and portals you've seen, if you're expecting that to happen, I'm sure that you probably already have discussions on how to avoid the issues from happening, but just keep an eye out on things that are changing and things that you might not have expected as well. Once you're done, well, you finish your projects and let everybody know, celebrate at the end, which is always great. Bear in mind though, that this is not just a linear process. Remember earlier on when I asked you about how you are going to deliver your projects, there was this big bar of chocolate and the different chunks of chocolates. So if you have a big bar, then yes, this of course is linear. But if you have different phases, then when you finish one phase, you finish one phase, you go back to the detailed planning of the second phase, and you go back to the detailed planning of the third phase as well, which saves you a lot of time, because when you first start thinking about your project at the beginning, you know what you're going to do for the second phase, but don't spend too much time breaking down the second phase in too much detail, because it will change based on everything that you found and learned during phase one. So that's another thing to bear in mind. You still need to have an idea of what you'll do phase two, but it doesn't need to be broken down in too much detail at the beginning of the project. The second reason why I talk about this, and it's really important, is to answer another question or issue that people usually tell me. One of the biggest friction in organization, especially cross department, is the fact that one organization doesn't know what the other, or one department doesn't know what the other department is doing. People work in silos, and sometimes something as simple as you're running a project, let people know as early as possible will be really, really welcome. And it's a great way to reduce the tension in an organization. And if you don't really know when to inform people, especially people who are not, that doesn't need to be directly involved, but just kind of just need to know as a FYI this is happening, then as a minimum, my plea to you, as a minimum, update people as you're moving to different sections. So think about that as a checkpoint. As you are moving on, let people know that something happens. Let people know that the plan was changed, the vision was changed. We are still going to the same why, but there is new parameters that we might not know. And as people are reading on your progress, they can, especially if you're from the marketing team and you're not really directly involved in the project, they can start thinking about, where do I fit in this project? Is there anything that I can use from that for the social media? And if you are in a data department, is there something, especially the department that will be receiving the project at the end, being informed that things are going on means that they can start planning earlier on changes that they need to do as well on their own side, so that they're ready for when you finish. And again, it creates a lot more harmony as well. Now, let's take this concept of different stages. And as you can see, we already went to the first stage of setting up the project. And that was done with the project team. They already have a really strong, good basis to start. But I'm sure that by bringing other people on, they will find some holes much earlier on, rather than finding those holes once you're already starting on a project and you are too invested and it becomes more difficult to fix. So they bring in other people. So we got the Cambridgeshire Deaf Association, speaker, marketing, and finance. So what tweaks or what new information can come out from them? Let's see. Now, one question you might be wondering, what to do if I can't get everybody in the room? The good thing to do would be to bring everybody in the room and have another workshop, but sometimes you might have to take what you've already done and have one-to-one discussion with other people, make your project plan stronger, and once you're finished, you send the finished product to everybody else as well. So that's another good way of dealing with calendar being too busy. One of the things when we talked to CDA, one thing that they looked at and they said, well, I noticed you've got a room that you use a lot, but make sure that there is a lot of soft cushioning, and there's reduce the background noise, avoid wooden floors. And that's because people wearing a hearing piece, it works as an amplifier, which means that if you are in a coffee shop, they can be struggling to listen to you. By the same time, we probably don't listen to that, but because of the amplifier, they can hear what's going on in the kitchen as well. And that's really distractive and difficult to focus. And again, this is a really, really small example of the benefit of bringing experts in and asking questions when you are not very sure on the direction of the things that you are working in. Another insight that we got that we would not even have thought about ourselves was the fact that we needed 2 sign language interpreters and not 1. And that's because sign language interpretation is really physical. It's not just about, because when you see on TV, it's not just about the hands, but it's really, really physical, and they get tired. So for an hour workshop, people need to swap around. Now, from the finance perspective, when they look at that, they're like, 2 interpreters, we need to pay more. And again, that is great. It means that earlier on, you already know that the task on sign language means finding 2 different people. So that will take a little bit more time. And also, is there anything I can do? If I don't have a budget and money is restricted, can I change some different aspects? For example, do we really need to print, distribute flyers and pay for all of that? Or can you just do without that and reuse the money in a different way? What we can learn from the marketing team is that they would love to have video marketing because that will appeal to the non-hearing audience. And we also need to get the videos to be interpreted as well. And again, by bringing different stakeholders, or jargon there, different people working on the project together and having a healthy discussion, is that the CDA was really excited about helping us reduce our costs, especially when it comes to the video marketing. We will pay for the interpreters on the day, but when it comes to the videos, we use their facilities. They've got a green room, which was superb, recorded the videos, and they translated that. They gave us the finished product, and we used that as part of our marketing campaign. And more importantly, the reason why they were super important in the marketing was the fact that we could attract the hearing audience, but the non-hearing audience were from their channel, their social media channels, and they could do the targeted marketing for us. And as you can see, we went from just the project team, and with a healthy plan, yes, we could have started and moved along the way. But what would have happened if there was no forward planning was the fact that we would have found all those issues along the way. So it's nicer and much better for us to come together, find them much early, and then decide how we're going to move forward with this as well. And again, the speaker, which is really important, they've run a lot of workshops. We're not worried about them, but they've never run a workshop with interpreters. So they had questions: how fast do I speak? How slow do I speak? Putting a session where they can speak to the interpreters at the beginning means that they can feel a lot more relaxed as well. Now, as you can see, just by doing this, just by using Post-it notes as well, you've managed to break down your projects in different chunks. And using those different chunks, you've managed to have enough information that you can use the milestone or top level task to report the progress to management or other teams who doesn't need to know the details. You've generated the details that you need for you to be able to move on with the project. You've brought people together through the who section of your project so that you can enrich your plan and make sure that you deal with all the details. You had your risk column up, which means that whenever there was any potholes along the way, you've already recorded them and start dealing with them to make sure that you have less surprises as we're going along as well. Thanks to the fact that we spent so much time looking at the how and the how much is going to need, how much money we have, we knew that if we don't have an interpreter and we have limited amount of money, there are other things that we can do as well. So we kind of kept that in mind. We kept the budget in mind as we are planning forward. So I hope you can start to see the benefit of using these techniques and all of the different tools that I've given you so far in a way that can change how you run your workshop and how you run and manage your projects. And as I've said before, if you keep everything updated and written down, it means that by the time you do a detailed project, all you have to do is update the initial spreadsheet, which already had your plan mentioned in, and add a new task that you found as well. So it's not a complete replanning from scratch, which will probably waste the time of other people who might not be interested in that, but is making sure that your plan is a little bit tighter and makes the life of you leading the project less stressful as we're moving forward. Now, a big jargon that even I can't go without when it comes to project management, bear in mind the project triangle: time, cost, and quality. And especially if you're not a project manager, one of the good ways you can use that is actually going back to people asking for too much and for management asking for too much, or asking you something that you think, we are struggling here. Remind people that most of the time you can, if you change one parameter, the other two will move. So if you wanted to make something cheaper, for example, or someone asking you to do something that will increase the cost, but you don't have the budget, then you have to do it slower, taking much time, or you reduce the number of tasks. So that's what we did for the Deaf Awareness Week, or you affect the quality of what you do. And the same, if someone wanted the perfect quality, they wanted to build a Rolls Royce when a normal car would do, then it will cost you much in terms of money, and probably need more time as well if you want to get all the bells and whistles. So whenever you have those kind of discussion and dialogue and conflict situation where people are really attached to certain things that they want to have, and you can see the impact, then think about explaining it to them using this concept of time, cost, and quality. If nothing else, it shows to them that you've listened to them and that you have taken the time to digest what they're saying. Their contribution is not completely invaluable, but there is a restriction that you have to work with. And if they're happy to give you more money and get that things done, that's a win. So I wanted to finish off just with that as a really important thing for you to bear in mind. Now, just to bring everything together, because I've talked about quite a lot of stuff, I just wanted to give you a bit of a reminder of some of the important documents that you could have created as you are moving through the projects. So according to Peter, some of the important documents to have are, especially when you look at the builds aspect, the task list. That would be a spreadsheet if you wanted to, and that will lead nicely to the detailed project plan. It contains the milestones in there. And once you have the task list, all you need to do to turn into a plan, especially on the spreadsheet, just add the dates when you think you're going to do this, complete the activities, and who's going to do this. And that's the basic minimum you have that you can share with your entire team. You've got a timeline if you wanted to make it quite graphical, so you can go in a PowerPoint and make your milestone really nicely shown. So if you want to share that, create another small table with them, that would be fine as well. You've got the stakeholders list, and it's just a list of the people who will be involved so that you know who to keep informed at different stages of the project as well. And of course, the budget is very important. We looked at the potholes, and as you are finding them, all those risks and issues that could be popping up along the way, you've been recording them in a spreadsheet. So there you go, that's a document that's already been done for you very quickly. And the cruise control, we talk about the checkpoints and gateways. If there's no other moment you're really struggling to figure out when am I going to update people, well, once you finish planning and moving on to a different stage, let people know. Give them a summary of what happens, and you can do that through a status report, or a small email, or through a small meeting, and just invite the company, open meeting, anyone who can attend, you give them information. And that's a really good way to get people on your side and keep going. So what were the techniques that we've learned? Well, the first one is plan using Post-it notes. That is really, really simple. I mean, if you really struggle to visualize your project or really struggle to think about the details, Post-it notes is a really, really good way. It gets people engaged virtually or physically. People move around and you can start having conversation. And it also draws in the people who are more shy or quiet. They don't really have to talk. They can just get along and write things down on the note and really bring people together. We talked about priority and how important it was, the triangle, and how you can use that to help you manage your project and keep a handle on what you're going to do becoming bigger. I've shared with you ideas on how to run workshops, and of course, the 5 main questions for you to ask at every single stage of the project or whenever you're reviewing the project. So that's me. And that's something that Jane found really useful as well. And before I go, some final thoughts. Business as usual, jargon. If you do the same activity, for example, in marketing, we'll be putting together a marketing campaign. Should I plan for that? That's a question I'm often asked. Yes, you need to plan for it, but you probably plan once, have a template of the activities and pass it on to the next person. Because it means that you have the consistency. Anyone on your team, they know what they need to do. It might vary, but they know what they need to do as well. And whenever you bring someone new on the project, you onboard a new person, they have something that they can use to kind of get up to speed very, very quickly. Living documents. Anything that you create needs to be updated as you're moving along. There's no point having a risk list or a decision list and never looking into them. Leading without authority. I've shared with you some ideas and some thoughts here and there on how to deal with conflicts, especially when you're being asked to do things that you think is not really useful. And I hope for those coming to my workshop on personality types, it will give you some insight as well on different ways you can really start having an influence, even if you're not managing anyone else. And the best one, I'm not a project manager. Should I really do this? It's too much work, too much details. I'm not a detailed person. I hope you appreciate that using this technique will really alleviate some of the concern you have with running a project. And being able to create those documents much, much earlier on, as you're working towards the end, towards the development of your project, means that you are not really in a panic situation. If nothing else, it helps you being less stressed as you're moving along. Now, for anyone who has other question, and I know you're probably wondering, there are so many other topics that I could have touched upon, good meeting etiquette, and what tools to use if I don't have enough money, walkthrough of my projects, if you need help reviewing your projects or making sure that you keep everybody updated, and you have ideas, but you're not really sure how to tweak things along. Document templates, you don't really know where to start with that, or how to set up a simplified structure for your organization, then feel free to email me or find me on LinkedIn. And I do offer Power Hour as well, where within an hour, I can just speak to you. And it's not a lengthy consultation, which is an hour, ask exactly the question, answer the question you have for your business, and you're off to go. So remember, if there's one thing you want to take out of the project, it's this idea of keeping an eye out, forward planning. Before you leave your house, before going on a long drive, you cannot want to know where you're going, and that's the same with your project. Think about building portals and cruise control. This will allow you to manage your projects and avoid letting your projects manage you. And using these techniques, you'll be well on your way of turning your organization and turning your life and workplace into a playground. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to hear. And thanks, Emily. You said, put a message. Thank you. Amazing presentation. It was the best. Oh, the best on project management for not project managers I've ever attended. You really won my heart there. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Good stuff, Nelly. Thank you so much for that really detailed, thorough explanation of how to plan a workshop or an event, online event, which is really relevant right now.
Yeah.
Using a project management and approach, and really beautiful comment by Emily Louvette, who really summarizes that session. The amazing presentation, the best project management for non-project managers that I've ever attended. So let's open this up now for questions. We've got about 8 minutes. Does anybody have any questions for Nelly? Feel free to hit the raise your hand. Oh, Veronica. Hi, Veronica. Do you want to unmute? Ask away.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was the clapping button.
Oh, was it?
I'm not sure. I'm just saying thank you. I thought that was really comprehensive, and yeah, there's a lot to think about and try and put into action now. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate the feedback.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any questions for Nelly? If not, I might have one and no one. Okay, so project management, Nelly, you touched on the risk log, assessing the risk. What if someone wanted a bit more kind of detailed explanation? I know we've only got a few minutes. Sure. Can you map out in terms of how do you create that risk log? What will those columns look like on the spreadsheet and the labels, and how you would prioritize it?
Right. So I'm definitely a big believer on keeping it simple. Keeping simple. So you've got your risk, and that would be things that could be happening. And then you have another column to start thinking of how likely you think this is going to happen. So sometimes you can have a risk of trying to think of, for a workshop, for example, something that could happen that very unlikely, there's no electricity in the venue, or the TV doesn't work. It's unlikely to happen, but if you wanted that, you can put unlikely there. And then another one is how bad the impact will be. And then you can put something there just to kind of give you an idea. Now, people, depending on who you're speaking to, they will say rate each column from 1 to 10. And then when you add them or multiply them, you have a column that you can use to prioritize and deal with all the risk as well. So that's one way. So that gives you one column for the risk, one for the likelihoods, the other one for the impact, and one is kind of a way of putting this information together and see how it's going to be affected. Then the next column will be who will work on this, right? So that's another thing that I found people also forget. So you can put it under your own name as a project manager, but the idea is if you have a risk register, that's a jargon, with all your risks, you can share it with your team, and your team can focus on just, if they don't want to see the big list, they can just filter on their name, and they know things that could be happening that they could be dealing with as well. You can also put the date and time, so that's record the date when you first created or logged the risk, or keep it simple, when you think it might happen. And the reason why you think it might happen is important is if there's something that's going to happen in the future and you have absolutely no control over it, yes, it's definitely going to happen. If you know that it's happening, then you can start preparing how you're going to deal with that. And another column could be like a bit of a status, is it ongoing, on hold, or delayed? And the way I use that, again, if you wanted to use really the right terminology, would be, should we avoid the risk? So is there anything that we've done about this? Should we mitigate the risk and deal with the underlying issues? Sometimes you have an issue, you deal with that, create other issues. Or should we just accept the fact it's not gonna happen? And for me, when I train people and really don't want to bother with the terminology, I just put things like ongoing. We're still looking into that, and completely or dealt with. I know that we're done. It's still recorded for future. I mean, you might have run a similar project in the future, right? So if you have the information, great. If you think there's something that still need to be looked into, you can put like flag into red, or we need to look into that, or transferred, or someone else is going to look into that as well. Yeah. For example, the risk that we had with the Deaf Awareness Week, especially the marketing one, our biggest concern was to say something, because again, I don't have any relative or family that are deaf, so I don't really know the right words to use, right? And the way especially the marketing campaign, the way we transfer the risk was by working with CDA. So working with that organization means that when they're recording me talking, they can say, hold on a minute, don't say that. It's really bad, it's insensitive. So that's the other different ways where you can manage that. So I would say, keep it very, very simple. If you do want to do the likelihood and the frequency or the impact, you can do that. Or if you really want to keep it simple with wording that you understand, do that as well, because the most important thing is how easy it is for you to explain to your team members so that everybody understands exactly how you're tracking it as you're going forward.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you, Naily. I think a big part of project management is managing that risk log, and it helps you to have that foresight in case anything happens. So thank you for running through that. So if anyone is interested in that, do look up risk logs or registers. There's lots of kind of templates out there if you would like to look, if you'd like a kind of template of that. We do have Naily as our featured member in our Facebook group. We do have a Facebook group, the Rising Network. Do head to it. Naily will be our featured member in there. Every month we have a featured member and different themes. So if you do have any more questions around project management, these risk logs, or any other questions that come up after, do head to the Facebook group. She will be in there for the month of May, or do email Naily directly. So I want to take this opportunity to thank you again, Naily, for that insightful, really detailed and thorough explanation of project management. I want to thank you all for dialing in and for your participation. Before you all go, I just want to share some upcoming events that we've got, which I'll pop on your screens just now. So here are some upcoming events just to that I'd like to flag up so you don't miss out on anything. Next session we've got is on the intercultural dimensions in human resources. Our next Time Out Tuesday, natural ways to boost the immune system through what you eat, some healthy natural remedies there, food, diet. Mindfulness poetry in May. That falls within Mental Health Awareness Week, and we've got Jaspreet Kaur, who's an award-winning spoken word artist. Later on in May, Social Capital and the Rules of Engagement. So how do you build your network? Something that, you know, the Rising Network is all about, is about building social capital, extending that network. How do you do that? We've got Dr. Froswell Booker Drew dialing in from Texas, Dallas. She'll be joining us there. 7 Daily Habits in June. And then we've got a series. So if you've always wanted to write a book, we've got a 3-part series. We did an introduction to this a few weeks back. This is a more detailed series program that you can sign up for. It's runs in 3 consecutive weeks, and that's with Alison Jones. We do also have Naily back with us. She'll be back on the 24th of June for personality types. Naily, do you want to quickly high level explain what that will be about?
So what I love about personality types is, imagine if if we could all work around with our needs written all over us. So you could say that I'm the kind of person who I love details, and I'm the kind of person, just get to the point. I don't really want to hear all the rambling around, just tell me what I need. And I'm someone who's really enthusiastic and really positive, and I get really tired when people are very negative around me. And that's what we are going to look at. So if you think about, although we are all very unique and all very different, we can all be split into main groups. And if you start understanding what each group needs, it improves how you communicate.
Brilliant, thank you. So that is the 24th of June. Head to the website for more details. A few more comments, Naily, for you from Jessica Hornsby. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this presentation. Sue McGrath says, thank you, very comprehensive and helpful. Agnes, I hope I said your name right. Thank you very much, great presentation. And Dr. Minha says, thank you, Naily, much appreciated. So all around, big thumbs up, thank you so much. And I hope to see you very soon. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.